Hello, I'm Kathy Bissell. Welcome to the Golf Show 2.0. Today, we're going to talk about the new decision by the USGA and the R&A to actually attack the distance problem. They've done something to create a new kind of golf ball, and everyone in the golf industry is now throwing their arms in the air going, oh my goodness, what's this going to do? Gary, what do you think it's going to do besides make two sets of rules?
Well, they said dirigibles would never fly. They said man would never hit 73 home runs in a baseball season. And they said the USGA and the R&A would never do anything about the ball. Two of those three things were wrong. They've finally done something. And I'm looking forward to all hell breaking loose here in the next 2 years as the
I think so.
discussion period happens. So it's not going to affect the average hack, but any ball that under testing conditions flies farther than 317 yards, give or take the margin of error, will be non-conforming. And from what I just read moments ago, basically every ball that is sold today would be non-conforming.
Yes,
so they're going to have to reconfigure the ball used by professionals, at least in some of the events. Now we have a million questions.
Yes, we have
tons of
questions.
I think the Masters they've talked about having their own ball years ago. They're going to go for this. They've spent all this money on of course, the US Open's going to go for it. Well, the PGA Tour and the PGA of America, what if they don't? So we could have our own little PGA Tour versus Live thing going on with 1 week. These guys are playing a flight restricted ball. The next week, they're not. That would be so fun to watch.
Yes, it would.
But not to be a part of if I was a player.
Well, I think that they'll probably make modifications in the drivers or in the shafts to see what they can do, because they say, okay, I'm hitting your golf ball, but I can still hit this thing 335 yards. What happens when that happens? Well, excuse me.
Look, it's once they all do this. Look, I played in a tournament about 15 years ago run by the Ohio Golf Association.
Oh, yes.
It was an experiment. It was a one-ball tournament. Everybody had to play the same ball. It was not a Pro V1. They wouldn't tell us what it was. It was unmarked. It had an OGA logo on it. And it was firmer, but it went about 5 to 8% less. And I figured out, much to my dismay too late, that it didn't check up very well with 9-irons. But once you adapt to it, it's the same for everybody. It's fine. But you had these college kids in this tournament going, oh, I can't wait to get back to my Pro V1. Well, if you put this rule in, there's no going back. So you just adopt or adapt, as the case may be, depending on which vowel you choose to. You could adopt a ball.
Well, you're going to adopt one, and you're going to adapt to it.
Yeah, and hope it marries well. But the fan watching at home on the PGA Tour, he can't tell by watching whether the guy hit a drive 340 or 320 or 310.
No,
the longer hitters are still going to be the same ratio longer than the next guy that they're longer than already. So it's not that big of a change, but the manufacturers hate this. The players don't like it. The tours, I think, are against it. And not too sure how the sponsors feel. This is just a bunch of, governing bodies and media types and purists who have been railing against how far the ball goes for years, and something's finally been done. So,
well, I'm not a purist, but I've been.
I'll say.
I'm not. I'm a pragmatic person, but I have been upset because so many golf courses have either lost their opportunity to host big events or host PGA Tour events, or probably even LPGA events or Champions Tour events, because the length that the ball goes, whether it's the ball or the clubs or whatever it is, players can hit it so far that the golf courses have been obsoleted, and that's unfortunate. And people who have a golf course that's 50 years old or 60 years old or 70 years old, that golf course is it's fine for member play, but to have a professional come in there and play it, it's going to be really a pitch and putt. It's just not going to be a challenge for them at all, unless you make them use clubs from 1985 or something. I mean, it just has ruined the golf courses all over the country. And people can't, Wingfoot can't go and buy another 40 yards around its golf course because there are houses all the way around it. People cannot add land to their golf courses. The Augusta National is the only one that's got both the money and the power to go out and get that done. And they had to buy a hole from Augusta Country Club. I don't know what they had to promise them to do that, but they did. So that's a heck of a situation.
I'm pretty sure it was a case of Lisbonita wine, as seen behind me.
What kind of wine?
I don't know. Lisbonita, I don't know. I just like the box. It's an empty box I found in my garage. Look, there's two questions. Is this good for golf? And is this actually going to happen? It's going to be big expense for manufacturers. They're going to have to make 2 sets of equipment, and it's going to ruin their marketing plan because they market clubs by advertising on the PGA Tour. And if they're hitting a ball that the public's not going to buy,
right,
that they're going to have to rethink that. That's easily fixable, but they hate to change.
Well, since Titleist's main sales, I think, are in balls, not in clubs. I could be wrong.
Well, Titleist has a stranglehold on golf balls. They're far and away the category leader, but they make some pretty good darn golf clubs too. I've got some in my bag. But
they primarily make golf balls, I think.
They own FootJoy. They make shoes. They make everything.
That's true. Yeah.
They're ubiquitous.
When somebody ruins their ball business, I mean,
it might not ruin their business, but it's going to level the playing field, which is why nothing's been done, because all these years when Wally Uihlein was head of Titleist, he was very aggressive defending his brand. And a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, assumed that if the USGA did something about the ball, Titleist would sue them. And the USGA didn't have pockets as deep as Titleist or lawyers as aggressive. So they shied away from this. But, can they pull this off? I mean, let's say the Masters does this and the U.S. Open does this and the Tour doesn't. What if the Tour decides we're going to play by our own equipment rules? We like 370-yard drives.
Yeah.
So it'll be like the scene in Ghostbusters where Bill Murray's telling the mayor about mass chaos, dogs and cats living together. That's what it's going to be. But right now, these guys hit it so far. Yeah. Really, the only courses that are long enough to host the PGA Tour players are pretty much the courses that host the Tour.
Yes.
There's hardly any other courses anywhere long enough to hold these guys. And if you look at Korn Ferry Tour events, a lot of times they shoot the lights out of the course because it's only 70, 100 yards and it can't be made longer. Or if you go on the smaller tours, Canadian Tour, they play some courses that are short. And these kids, everybody in the Korn Ferry hits an average of 300 yards, just about. 300 yards used to be a big drive, and I'm going way back.
Now it's not.
Now it's barely average. If you hit 300 yards, you're average. You're not exceptional. So
I mean, that's 3 football fields. That is just a long, long, long way. People need to think about how really far that is. That's how far Tour players are hitting the ball all the time.
Especially if you're the Houston Texans, try to pick up 10 yards with that offense. That 100 yards is impossible. 300 yards, they might not do that in a whole season.
Well, anyway, back to the distance problem. When I first read that they weren't going to allow anybody to go over 317 yards on their test, I know that they use ShotLink to have everybody's drives measured on the measuring hole, which is usually a par 5 or a long par 4. I was imagining them getting out there to 317 yards and somebody's golf ball was 325 yards and a guy picking up and walking it back to 317. I mean,
well, that would be crazy. But now that you mention it, I'm starting to kind of like the sound of that. That would be so fun. Oh, you hit it too far. We got to get it over the line. We got to penalize it back. No, that will just be done in the testing of the ball to determine whether it's conforming. So they will have to reconstitute the ball. Like we said, every ball out there is non-conforming under these guidelines. And then once that happens, they will start reconfiguring the shaft and the face and whatever.
They're going to go to the shaft.
We went through that in the, in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
We used to hit these, with persimmon woods, you need a high spin ball to get them airborne. And then we went to the Pro V1 and all these harder balls, and you need low launch, a low spin. And, you want to have some fun, take your old persimmon wood out with one of these low spin balls and see if you can get it up in the air at all. Good luck with that. You're going to be hitting line drives to the second baseman.
Could be there forever.
The game has changed, and they're trying to change with it. And I commend them for having the guts to make this move. I don't know whether it's going to really go into effect or not. We're going to see. They've got 2 years to 2.5, well, 3 years, I guess.
I think they should have done it before the Pro V1 took off. They can't, you can't put the Pro V1 back in the box. It's that.
No, it's not it's not even the Pro V1. Here's where history split. It's when the metal wood was born.
Yes.
And nobody at the USGA had the good sense to tell Gary Taylor of TaylorMade. Nobody had the good sense to tell Gary Taylor, hey, what part of the word wood do you not understand? You can't make a wood out of metal.
But there had been metal clubs long ago. There were metal.
Well, they could have said right then, let's stop this right here. That's not in the history of the game. We're going to keep persimmon clubs. I mean, baseball did it. We're not going to allow metal bats into Major League Baseball. Yeah. So the USGA fumbled the ball badly there. History was changed. We can't go back. If we said, you can only play persimmon woods, every company in the business right now would go, we don't know how to make those. And there probably aren't enough persimmon trees to even have a supply anymore. So there's no going back to that. But
I have a funny story about
where we went wrong was persimmon woods. And there was so much skill involved. And look, everybody under the age of 60 isn't going to know what I'm talking about, which is basically all of our friends are over the age of 60.
Right.
But when you had a persimmon wood, if you didn't hit it dead in the sweet spot, you lost significant yardage. And with the ball of the day, not only did it not go as far, it curved and went farther offline.
Yes.
So if your good drive flew 230 or 40 yards, if you missed it off the sweet spot, it flew 215. I'm talking about that was approximately me in the 80s. I don't know what it would be for a good player now, but that's why Nicklaus dominated. He was pounding his drives 300 yards and straight when everybody else couldn't hit him that far, and they couldn't hit him straight like Jack. His skill level gave him a huge advantage with his accuracy over everybody else. And that's all been lost. So, I mean, let's let go of that and move on. They've got a real estate problem here. We've got
enormous real estate problem for everybody in the country whose golf courses have been, what is it? Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. This is the USGA shrunk the golf course. It's anybody who's a professional who goes to a course that was built before 1985
it seems like the
the
drivable par 4 is the flavor of the month.
Well,
it's not because we started designing drivable par 4s. It's because a lot of par 4s got within range of these guys that were hitting at 360.
Yes. I remember 320-yard par 4s.
Drivable par 4 might be fun on TV, but it slows down play. It's like a par 3. You have to wait for the green to clear it before you can hit. Yes, that's another reason, you watch the Players' Championship and it takes a long time. There's hazards everywhere. The holes are hard. And there's at least one drivable par 4. and they have to, and this, every par five is reachable. It just backs all the play up. So that's one reason play is slow. Drivable par fours are part of the problem. Not that we should get rid of them completely, but that's just a side effect. Again, we're back to the big question. How's this going to play out? How's it going to affect the top players? And will anyone actually let this happen?
Well, I would suspect that Titleist has pretty good lawyers, although it may be a different situation now that they are no longer an American-owned company. They were purchased by a foreign company.
I don't think that'll make a difference. They're going to defend their brand. They're going to defend their dominance. So I don't think
then they're going to get the biggest, baddest lawyer they can find.
Yeah, any owner of a company would do what's best for their company.
Yes.
Not necessarily what's good for their sport, their recreation, or their sport. I mean, that's just business 101. And we like to say, oh, we're all in golf for the good of the game, but it's a business. We're not. So I give them. I wouldn't doubt that they'll do something. But look, you've got the R&A with the Open, the USGA with the US Open, and the Masters. 3 or 4 majors.
If I were the Masters, I would have gone to a Masters ball 10 or 15 years ago. I said, if you're going to play in our tournament, this is going to be the golf ball you use, and it's going to have our logo on it, and this is the one you have to use if you want to win.
I know they thought about it. The problem is you have players who have different kinds of needs with different kinds of balls. They're
too bad.
Aerodynamic dimples. You could have done it. They didn't want to be the bad guy either. Nobody wanted to be the bad guy in this, using the word bad guy as an agent of change. So I think Mike Wan, the head of the USGA, who's been great at every job he's ever had, although I heard he wasn't much of a paper boy years ago. But you got to give him credit for attempting something so bold. And it's not like this is a hard and fast rule. It's going to be a local rule that tournaments can do. So PGA Tour events will have the opportunity to opt out of this. But really, if these guys are going to have to use this stuff for some of the majors, I don't think going back and forth is going to be a great way to go. So,
well, maybe it isn't, but when you think about the advertising that the manufacturers do on television for balls alone, I think that that's going to affect the bottom line of the PGA Tour in terms of their advertising to get tournaments on the air. I think it's going to affect the advertising revenue for, it's not for the Masters, but for the United States Open. And I think it'll affect it for maybe the British Open, because
the manufacturers may get together and say, hey, we're not supporting ad-wise, we're not supporting any of your tournaments.
And that would hurt.
That could be part of their strategy. And here's another question: what will Liv do? Not that we really.
Oh, they're not going to do
Liv
this.
Go along with this? I doubt it. I don't know. Maybe they will.
Because they have the 2 guys that have hit drives the longest that we've ever seen in tournaments. And we've talked about this in Matthew Wolff and Bryson DeChambeau at the U.S. Open that Bryson won.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Hudson Swafford. Oh, well.
No. Well, these 2 were on camera and the world saw them. And Matthew Wolff hit a drive over 370 yards. And Bryson hit one at least that far.
He won 388. I think it was 388 and 375.
Okay.
On the 9th hole at Wingfoot the last day. Something like that.
It was really long.
I think we might be missing the big picture here. The real question is, what is this? This could cost Happy Gilmore his tour card. And this could give a big advantage to Shooter McGavin. This could make 2025, 26 a big year for Shooter McGavin on the comeback trail. And I don't remember the commissioner's name in that movie. It was Dennis Dugan, the actor. But what will Commissioner Dennis Dugan do? We don't know.
I don't know. Well, what will the PGA Tour do about it? I mean, are they going to say fine?
I don't think
the players are going to say fine.
The PGA Tour has been very interested in hearing about reduced distance balls or clubs or limits. So They
People
could
did go
decide
on
to have their
golf.
own equipment rules and break away from the USGA as the governing body and become their own governing body, which would give them a lot more freedom and a lot more power, which that
They
wouldn't
should have
surprise
done
me
it
at all.
over the long. They should have done it over the long putters, really.
The long putters didn't affect anybody that mattered to them. You know,
well,
this matters to their.
Peter Dawson got mad.
This rule matters to the glamorous superstars, Rory and DeChambeau, and who else is a big hitter? I'm drawing a blank.
All of them are big hitters. John
Well,
Rahm.
they all are, but you know, John Rahm. This affects them. The anchoring ban that affected Matt Kuchar and 39 guys on the senior tour that they don't care about. So that they nobody was going to lose any sleep over that.
Well, they should have. It
I
had to do
think
with a lot of.
I think that decision was bad.
There were a lot of club players who were extremely upset about that, but maybe they'll watch our show on the hockey stick putter and they can get something.
Caliber Golf, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
That's right.
I was just practicing with it on the practice green at the Golf Dome here in Pittsburgh mere hours ago. And I think it's going right in my bag.
I hope so. So the other thing we wanted to talk about was how great Scotty Scheffler is looking.
No, he's just lucky.
No, he's not just lucky. He's just
total
he
luck.
shows up good.
Total luck. Once again, he lucked into it.
No,
Taylor Montgomery was going to win that thing until he went 19 over in the last 3 holes. Otherwise,
well, that's part of it. You get up
Scheffler. I've said it before. John Rahm has been on a hot streak.
Yes.
Scotty Scheffler's not on a hot streak. This is his normal.
This is just how he is. Yeah.
This is how he is. He was one good shot away from winning Bay Hill. You can go back. He was right there for the U.S. Open last year. He was right there for the Players, the FedEx Cup. And I think there was somewhere else. But, I mean, he's up there a lot. He's just that good. He's long. He's reasonably straight long when his footwork doesn't get out of whack. Good iron player. And he's chipping and putting around the greens. He is as good as, if not better than Jordan Spieth. He's got unbelievable hands.
Yes.
And he's a terrific putter. So he doesn't really have a weakness. A guy who hits a lot of greens, chips great, and is one of the best putters on tour. It sounds a lot like a guy who I remember whose name rhymes with Liger Goods.
Oh, it took me a while.
Yeah, sorry. Let's pause the show now while Kathy tries to figure out what rhymes with Liger Goods.
I'm sorry, it was the
Red
first.
Funk? No, that's
it was
not
the
it.
first name of
Davis Love. No, that's not
it. It was the first part of that got me.
And Scotty's got the junior resume not dissimilar from Tiger, where wherever he played, he won everything in sight. Now, he didn't win 3 U.S. juniors in a row. He didn't win 3 U.S. amateurs in a row. He wasn't that, deified by the time he got to the tour. And he came out on tour. And if you remember, was it his first year on tour or second? He was still a new guy. Nobody really outside of Texas was that familiar with. The PGA Championship won by Colin Morikawa. Scotty Scheffler was in the hunt on the back 9 on Sunday.
I don't remember that.
When his footwork got a little off and he sprayed a couple drives and took himself out of it. But he was right there to maybe win the PGA. Was that
he was on leaderboards?
He was in the mix right then. That's when we first got our first look at Scotty as, well, this guy's impressive, but yeah, he's a little wild, but he's pretty good. So he's for real. He's not going away. I think John Rahm and Rory, they're great players, but Scotty Scheffler is going to be a handful for them and for everyone else.
Yes, absolutely.
Just not forget when he won the Masters, he did it despite 4-putting the last green, and he still won by 3, I think. So I know Rory and the guy who rhymes with Liger Goods, they both won a couple tournaments by big margins.
Yes.
But Scotty is He's just
Well, I don't know if he's a big margin winner, but as long as you win by one stroke, that's all you need.
well, he just won the Players by a large margin, considering relatively, for that tournament where nobody can separate themselves, and he won the Masters by a large margin despite gassing the final green. So he's the real deal. I think he's our number one to stay, more or less. I mean, they may swap chairs once in a while, but I don't know. Had I not been in Florida last week, I would have been betting Scotty to win the Players after his Bay Hill performance. And had I been there, I would have already put some bets down on him for the Masters, depending on the odds, because I think he's clearly the guy to beat at the Masters. He wins. He goes back to the places he won last year, and he plays great. He won in Phoenix. He won it, goes back to Bay Hill, plays great. If you don't think he's going to win the Masters,
well, I think we've about done our topics.
Sounds like we ran out of things. Let's talk about pencils. Do you like the number 2 or the number 3?
The what?
Pencils. Do you prefer the number 2 pencil or the number 3 pencil? I find the number 3 pencil, the lead's a little firm. What do you think?
I don't remember the number 3 pencils. The number 2 are soft.
Okay, well, when you were in grade school in that farmhouse,
you always had to have a number 2
you're
pencil.
Probably using chunks of coal. But luckily the Civil War ended and you're able to get some real pencils made. So I think that wraps it up from here for the Golf Show 2.0. Don't forget to like us. Click on the like button. Click on subscribe. There's the shameless plug. Boy, we need a new announcer. And again, our stated goal is to try to get enough viewers to make 17 cents total. We're getting very near earning our first cent. I'm exaggerating, but momentum is building. Keep watching.